Hey 104, it's your chief here. Since you guys aren't able to do your airport tour lesson, the training officer decided that it would be the next best thing to have a video. Luckily, I work at the airport, and I was able to give you guys a video tour of the airport. Since it's a slow day, it's raining, there's nobody really wanting to fly today. So I'm just here out on the runway to give you guys a tour of the airport, showing you the different components that are on your lesson. The first component that I can see out here is that the runway over here has all the little white runway lights on it, and those lights are there to line the runway and are able to turn on and off with the radios so that the airplanes can see the runway at nighttime, and during the daytime it also gives a better outline, especially during weather like this. If you look up here, this is our wind sock. The wind sock here is a visual representation of which way the wind's blowing. So right now it's blowing down this runway. The wind is blowing from this side, here, and it's coming across and blowing into the windsock that way. It turns with the wind, as well as gives the strength in different colors. The orange and red, or the orange and white stripes, indicate how strong the wind is. It'll flex at those little spots of the windsock. If it's the more of the windsock that's out, the more wind is blowing. The other thing that I can see out here at the moment is the little red and green lights. So these lights indicate the end and the beginning of a runway. Right now, since I'm facing them from the runway, as if I was coming down the runway, it would be the end of the runway. But if I go across over here and I show you them from behind, they actually turn green over here. So that's to indicate the beginning of the runway from the airplanes that are in the air coming towards the runway. So the other thing that I can show you guys here to indicate wind is this little paper airplane looking thing way out there that's yellow. That points towards which way the wind blows. Or the wind is coming from, rather. So the pointy end is pointing to the right, which means the wind is coming from the right. And it's blowing it. It's blowing wind to this way. While I'm out here on the runway, I figured I would point out these, well, just while I'm out here. So it's kind of hard to see from this angle, but that big white circle along with that little swirly mark over there, you kind of can't really see it. It's actually the numbers 05. Those numbers are there to indicate the runway's numbering, so the name of the runway, and it's meant to be seen from the air coming towards it, so that's 05. So using the runway from this direction means you're using runway 05. If you're to go to the other side, the numbers 23 would be on it, and that would be that you were using runway 23. It's the same runway as 05, but it's just going the opposite direction. The way that they're marked is the heading on a compass minus the last digit. So this runway is pointed the direction 050 on a heading, like on a compass, but they've cut off the number 0, and that's the number of the runway. So right here on the other side of this taxiway, if I were to come off the taxiway, I was just right about there. But at the beginning of the taxiway, there's a little marking A, and that's to indicate that that's taxiway A, or Alpha. So this is coming off of the runway. This is a little taxiway. A taxiway is what the planes use to drive on when they're not on the runway. And they use it to get to and from runways after they've landed or before they've taken off. Taxiways are usually indicated with these little blue lights. Little blue lights that go all the way down the runway, or down the taxiway. They're kind of hard to see in this weather. They're much brighter in the nighttime, and then they're always marked at the end with a little red light kind of thing right there. So they're numbered, or they're usually lettered. This taxiway is taxiway B. The taxiway on the other side of the airport is taxiway A. And then in the phonetic alphabet, that would be Bravo and Alpha. So another thing on taxiways and on the aprons and ramps and stuff, they're always lined with these little yellow lines, and they go off to wherever planes can go. So normally on a road, yellow lines means you stay to one side or another. But the way that these ones are worked is that's where your wheel should be. That's where your front center wheel should be when you're taxiing and driving around. So you follow that line all the way out there to get to these hangars, or you can go straight, or you can go to the left here and go down the ramp a little bit towards these planes. So part of your lesson is to see an apron with a fuel truck. So I figured I'd give the video from inside the fuel truck. And I'll give you a quick little tour of the apron. So the apron is where all the planes park and drive when they're not being used, or when they're going to and from hangars, approaching the terminal buildings, approaching different things like that. Usually most fueling is done on the runway, on the apron. So there's little, like, apron side store kind of things. I mean, Grand Aero's not really a store, but you can see that they have the same kind of signs as you would see on roads for stores. And aprons usually also have the yellow markings, the lines that the markings you drive on. So you're supposed to follow these when you're taxiing out the runways, things like that. And if you look to my left here, you can see there's a couple airplanes parked here. They're tied down to the apron in these little yellow double lines that you see right here. There's these cords, and you can use them to tie down your aircraft using ratchet straps or tie down cords, like what's underneath this wing right here. Taxiways are also, or not taxiways, sorry, aprons are also marked in blue light sometimes at the edge. They're kind of hard to see, but you can see a couple of them here and there that just kind of outline the taxiway, or the apron, and just kind of give planes ideas where they can and can't drive. So we only have a couple airplanes parked out here. The other thing I want to show you guys on the apron is sometimes there's a big compass rose. So we have one of those right there on the apron. It's a bigger indicator, so people up in the air can see it, and they can see that way is north, or whatever way they're heading is whatever way they're heading. And then that right there is, well, the Brantford Flying Center, which is also doubled as a terminal and a cafe, and there's also a flying school inside. I'll show you guys a closer up view of that as well. So I'll just give you guys an outside view of what the fuel truck looks like. It's just kind of like a big fueling truck. They use it to drive up and down to airplanes to fuel, and it has to be big because it has to hold all that fuel in the back there. And it has a pump and all the things you need to connect and ground the airplane while you're fueling it. Grounding is very important to fueling an airplane, because if you don't ground properly, you can cause a spark and it will cause a fire. You don't want that. So some of the different types of hangars you can get in an airport are storage hangars like these ones here, which basically are just big rooms that all these big doors open up. So like this one right here has a little man door you go into, and then this whole big section here opens up as a hangar door, and you can put your planes inside there. And there's quite a few different rows here at the Brantford Airport. There's one open over here somewhere, just to give you an example of what they look like inside. There's what a hangar like that looks like inside. And then the other type of hangars we have are like maintenance hangars, like this one. And maintenance hangars are usually just like repair shops for cars, but they're for planes. And so what it would look like inside is, I'll show you guys what this one looks like inside. Just to give you guys a quick visual. If I can find the right key here. It's just something like this. There's all the planes inside. And all the tools and stuff are all kept in here, and they get taken apart and fixed as they're needed. And that's all the different types of hangars. So the last part of this video, I'm going to show you guys the flying school. Here we have all the desks and chairs for the flying school students. We have posters that line the room, have different views of different cockpits, things like that, that different planes can have. There's a whiteboard here, as well as the desk for the teacher to sit in. We have a flight simulator over here. A little model, well, not really little, but an engine, something that pilots can use to visualize what the engine looks like in their plane. And with the chalkboards, projector screens, all the different books and stuff you'll need to learn how to be a pilot. As well as we have the other flight simulator over here. This one's not complete yet, but it will be a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer when it's done. And we have a little briefing room over here. The pilots use this to train one-on-one, just little private lessons, things like that. All the little teaching aids, all the instruments, model airplanes, things like that that anybody needs to see in order to learn how an airplane works. There's a little view of a Cessna's cockpit. Yeah, so that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys can use this towards learning how an airport operates, learning how the different components of an airport are put together, and gives you a little bit of more visual representation of how an airport looks. Have a good day, guys.